these are very large looms, so what I want you to do is only to warp the middle of it and use tape to keep the string to the board. Artists, these looms are already here when I got here. Try to find a clean side to weave on. There's a couple things I wanted to remind you about with weaving. You can decide your pattern. I would suggest having all the little tails that you've tied on one side. And if you can see where it kind of gets very narrow here, I keep trying to pull these apart. I'm doing a different type of pattern, and I've got 2 pieces of yarn put together. So it's a different way to weave, but it's a quicker way to weave. So instead of going over, under like you usually would, I'm going over, under 2. So I have 8 strings, and so now I'm on top, so I go under, and see where I take and I go, I have the pattern with the 2. Let me see if I can get closer in so you guys can see it a little bit better. And then once I have it like that, I pull it through. But what you need to be careful is when you're doing 2 strings of yarn, it might get twisted. You're gonna have to do it kind of slow. If it does get twisted, you pull it out like this, and then you gently press it down. And be aware that you're not pulling that too tight. And then the next thing, see how it's kind of twisted here? Let me scoot back out so you can see. It gets a little twisted, same thing. So now I'm on top of the yarn, so I go under the yarn, and I'm going through 2 strings at a time because that's the pattern that I chose. So you get to decide the pattern that you choose. Like I said, if it gets twisted, pull it through kind of slow. See how it's twisted there? Fix it, and then gently press it down because you don't want this to get real skinny, okay? So it's gonna naturally go just a little bit, but be careful with your weaving. Now, I would keep weaving. Let me make sure, yeah, you can see on the video. Keep weaving, doing my pattern. Check and see if it's getting twisted. Untwist it. Now, I told you that I want all my strings to be on the same side. So I'm going to show you when I get to the end, toward the end, see if I have enough yarn. So that's not twisted, bring it down. You can actually, artists, just set it here to look at it, and that will be enough. Now, if I had gone through and I was only to here, then I wouldn't have weaved that last bit. So I have enough because I laid it across, and I have enough for have a tail. Do the pattern that I've chosen. Like I said, you guys decide what you want to do. Make sure it's not twisted. And then gently, make sure, see how if I tied that really tight, that's what you don't want, artist. So I gently press this down. There's my tail. So then I would cut this piece. That little piece would go in the trash. And I'm doing a pattern of purple, black, and I have some yarn that's already on the hangers. You can use that, or you can do an arm's length. So I'm going to show you the next step. When you're choosing yarn, you always want to make sure that you take it from the middle and you pull gently. Okay, so you don't want to take it from the edge. So pull gently. You can do 2 arms lengths, and I'll show you what that means just a second. I'm just going to pull out a bunch of yarn here. I'm measuring it off camera. You can't see. Because remember, I'm doubling up my yarn. So that's like 2 arms length. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to take my needle, and how I'm doing mine different with my pattern. Like I said, you can weave how you want to. Very carefully. See how it's like fraying the yarn, so you want to be careful you get it all the way through. And then I'm doing it like if I was sewing. So I would pull it all the way through to the bottom. Oops, sorry guys. Pull it all the way to the bottom to where it meets, okay? So once it meets, then I'm ready to start. Now, what I was telling you before, start here on this side. So if it's on top, now it's gonna be under, and I'm gonna do my pattern like I've been doing, pull it through the whole needle. Hold your finger on this little tail here, artist. Pull it through, and then you wanna be very careful. See how I've got that little bit of a tail? Push this down, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these 2. I need to stop and move my camera so I can get to this a little better. Okay, so I've got my tail here. I take these 2 and I gently tie them together because you don't want to pull your weaving. Okay, I can get them through here. So gently tie it once on that edge, and then tie it a second time. And at the end, you have a decision to make whether you trim these, excuse me, if you trim these or you weave them back in. So now I've got the beginning of the black, and I'm ready to start weaving again. Artists, when you're using the yarn, please be careful that you don't make a knot of it. When you're taking off the hanger, hold it at the top and gently pull one string of yarn out. That way it won't get a knot. Artists, if you make a mess of the yarn, you will have to get everything out of a knot that you've made. Thank you. Okay, artists, I'm going to show you how to take this off the loom. We've already weaved it. And you decide what you want to do with these little tails. I'm going to go ahead and snip these close to the edge. I've seen where you can weave them back in, but it's easier to just do this. And this is just a little, but look right here. We got to make sure that we have tied these together. What I was going to say is this is just a little sample for you to be able to practice weaving. You know, are you necessarily going to turn this into something? Probably not. That's okay. I just wanted you to be able to practice a couple different types of weaving this week. So like I said, make sure you have it tied tight, and then trim these up, and then I'll show you how to take it off the loom. Please make sure, artists, that all these little pieces get in the trash and that none of them end up on the floor. Thank you. So you turn it over, and what you're going to do, you're going to cut the back strings, and then I have mine taped with my name on it up here. You're going to want to take that off. Same thing, make sure that goes in the trash. And then you have, I had mine taped in a couple different spots. So take the tape off. And you're going to want to be patient with this because you don't want to take it off all too quick and then you lose your weaving. You can turn it on its side if you need to reach it better. And you take 2 strings off at a time, and then you're going to do the tying into a knot. Don't pull this super tight because you'll push that down, and you don't want to do that. Let me scoot this over here, blow it up so you can actually see me tie a knot better. So I've got these 2. I did 1. See how the strings are coming off. Now I didn't have any white strings, so this might catch when you're weaving a little bit. This is the best that I could find. And then these kind of fell off, so just be very careful when you're taking them apart so you don't have it start unweaving on you. And then just gently do 2 knots, tying 2 strings together. And I warped my loom where it was even strings, so then when I come to it at the end, I will have an even number of strings that I'm tying together. So then you do both sides. I'll do this side and then I'll do the other side, and then it's the same thing with the little strings that you had. You can trim this if you want to. It's up to you. And there's your little sample of your weaving. Hold this and then cut it so it's nice and even. And then same thing, throw that away, please. Now, when I come to the end of this piece here, I've got this extra purple that was not weaved in. I would suggest taking, if you have like what I have, and tying it to one of the last black strings here at the end. And there's my little sample of my weaving.